Hi everyone, it's Katrina. From mysterious monsters hiding in the lake to ghosts that will chase you and eat your heart out, here are 9 scary stories and legends from North America. This video is requested by Allison Painter. Thanks, Allison. Be sure to subscribe and let me know what videos you would like to see in the comments below. Number 9. Bear Lake Monsters. Dating back to the summer of 1868, Native American legends repeated by pioneer settlers relate stories of the monsters of Bear Lake. Yes, as in several monsters. Similar to the Loch Ness monster, the first recorded sighting of these creatures tells of a remarkable 10 different creatures appearing at the same time. The Bear Lake Monster Report actually occurred 65 years before the Loch Ness Monster was said to have been sighted in Scotland. But who's to say? Native Americans believed a monster animal lived in the lake located on the Utah-Idaho border and that it had captured and carried away their people while they were in the lake swimming. The creature was said to look like a serpent, but with 18-inch legs that allowed it to crawl out of the water onto shore. It was also said to spurt water upward out of its mouth. Usually sightings occurred when people were alone, but in the summer of 1868, a group of about 7 people were attracted to motion on the water. The lake was smooth and there was hardly any wind. One of the witnesses claimed to see a very large animal that he believed to be no less than 90 feet in length. He also said that it moved faster than a train at an incredible speed. A few minutes after spotting the creature, another appeared in the water, but it appeared to be much smaller, the size of a horse, with more and more of these creatures following the first. Some weeks later, one of the local residents saw something in the lake that he believed to be a drowned person. When he went to get a closer look, he saw some kind of animal that raised its head and part of its neck out of the water. More and more sightings were reported around the same time period, leading to the legend of the Bear Lake Monsters. More sightings have been reported over the decades, with the last one reported as recently as 2002. But they were always mostly of just one creature, and never again large groups of them. What do you think the creatures might have been? Leave your guess in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. Number 8. Skinwalkers. Although skinwalkers are sometimes believed to be the origin of the werewolf story, they are also said to have the ability to transform into any different type of animal at will. Usually skinwalkers are seen as coyotes, wolves, foxes, and even owls or crows. Some are also said to have the ability to steal the faces of different people and appear as someone you know. The legend of skinwalkers originates from the Navajo, a southwestern Native American tribe. Their name means "he who walks on all fours." In Navajo legend, skinwalkers were sometimes believed to be harmful witches or medicine men who went to the dark side. They are never good. It is said that to become a skinwalker, one must kill a close family member. After doing so, the person acquires immense supernatural power, which gives them the ability to transform into animals and other people. Those who encounter the creatures describe the torment they inflict by knocking on the window or banging on the walls as a form of psychological warfare. Others say they have seen animal-like figures peering through the window. Fights are almost always to the death. According to the legend, skinwalkers are rarely caught, but those who do track one and learn their true identity must pronounce the name of the evil one in full, which will cause the skinwalker to get sick or die from the wrongdoings they have inflicted against others. Number 7. The Jersey Devil. If you thought the Jersey Devils were just a hockey team, you might be surprised to learn this long-standing piece of folklore that connects to one of New Jersey's most infamous mythical creatures. Said to stalk and terrorize residents of the Pine Barrens, a region in southern New Jersey, the Jersey Devil's story began in 1735. The story goes that a woman by the name of Mother Leeds had 12 children and found out that she was pregnant with her 13th. Her husband was a drunkard and she did not live a wealthy lifestyle. In anger and frustration, she raised her hands to the heavens and proclaimed, "Let this one be a devil." When she went into labor, the baby was said to change right before her eyes. Within moments, the newborn transformed into a hideous creature that began to wail, sprout horns from the top of its head, and talon-like claws from the tips of his fingers. Leathery bat-like wings appeared on his back, and feathers were said to have sprouted across the child's body. Its eyes started to glow bright red, and it snarled and savagely attacked its mother. After also attacking and killing the midwives and some of its family members, the monster then eliminated everyone else in its path before flying up into the chimney and escaping into the desolate woodlands. Those who survived to tell the tale made sure to warn the village. The Jersey Devil is said to haunt the region, living in dark forests and bogs and feast on domestic animals. The fearsome creature is not limited to the New Jersey area. Sightings have over the years also come in from Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. Although reports of the creature are quite fantastic, it doesn't stop people from still believing that it is a very real and dangerous thing. Descriptions of the creature vary wildly, with it being described as having the body of a kangaroo, the head of a dog, the face of a horse, leathery wings, antlers similar to a deer, and a reptilian tail and claws. In 1909, the beast went on a rampage. There was widespread panic as footprints were found in the snow all over several cities. Hounds refused to follow the scent, schools closed, and workers refused to walk through the woods to get to work. The beast was attacking people and their dogs and chickens, then flying away. Be careful when camping in Pine Barrens. Stories continue of sightings of a strange creature following people, stalking them in the dark, and then screaming bloody murder. And now for number 6, but first be sure to tell me your favorite story in the comments below, and if you enjoy this video, be sure to let me know by giving it a thumbs up. Number 6. The Black Dog of Hanging Hills. Connecticut might seem like the picturesque place for New Yorkers to raise their kids, but a dark tale in an area known as the Hanging Hills tells another story. An 1,800-acre area known as Hubbard Park, given to the town in the early 1900s, is said to be haunted by a spectral canine known as the Black Dog of the Hanging Hills. Stories of the dog go back to the late 18th century, but it wasn't officially documented until 1891. During that time, a New York geologist going by the initials FS was in the area doing research when he encountered the dog. As the geologist continued on to the park, the mysterious canine traveled alongside him, but didn't make a sound once throughout the entire day. As the day was ending and the geologist prepared to leave, the dog disappeared without a trace. FS, seeing no tracks in the dirt and not hearing any sounds from the dog, was understandably confused. 3 years later, the geologist returned to the Hanging Hills area to continue his research, this time bringing along another colleague by the name of Herbert Marshall. After telling Marshall about the dog, Marshall claimed to have already seen the dog twice during previous trips to the area. The next day, the two encountered the dog, and Marshall fell to his death after the rock he was standing on broke free of the ground and plummeted to the earth below. A few years later, FS returned to the hills and made a pilgrimage to the spot where Herbert Marshall had died. Unfortunately, the geologist's body was discovered a few days later at the bottom of the same cliff where Marshall's body had been recovered 3 years earlier. So was this black dog to blame for the death of the two men? Was he the cause of their deaths, or was he simply a ghost there to warn them of the treacherous conditions? Unfortunately, these questions continue to linger as encounters with the black dog are still said to take place within the Hanging Hills. Some say the story of the black dog is fictitious, written by a Harvard-trained geologist who published the work in 1898. But over 100 years later, encounters with the dog are still reported, and some refuse to travel into the area for fear that they will encounter it. If a man shall meet the black dog once, it shall be for joy, and if twice, it shall be for sorrow, and the third time, he shall die. Number 5. El Muerto. Most of us are familiar with the legend of Sleepy Hollow and the Headless Horseman, but did you know the state of Texas has a similar mythological creature/ghost story? In the mid-1800s, the dispute between the United States and Mexico was heating up, and the Texas Rangers, a roving posse of expert gunmen, were formed. During that same time, a man known as Vidal was rustling cattle in South Texas, and soon found that his stealing ways had earned a high price tag on his head. After gathering a number of horses, Vidal and a few of his men headed southwest towards Mexico. However, several prized Mustangs were in the herd he had just stolen, and the horses belonged to Texas Ranger Creed Taylor. After gathering a fellow ranger and a nearby rancher to help, the three men set out to find Vidal and his henchmen and retrieve the stolen horses. After catching up to Vidal, the Rangers decided to deal their own brand of justice by beheading Vidal and lashing him firmly into the saddle on the back of a wild Mustang. After propping Vidal upright, the men attached his head and sombrero to the saddle and then turned the bucking horse loose to wander the Texas hills. Stories soon started to swirl about the headless rider seen in the remote country. As more cowboys spotted the horse with the body on top of it, the story of Vidal went from one of frontier justice to legend. Locals dubbed him El Muerto, and soon all brands of evil and misfortune were credited to the so-called Headless Horseman. When local ranchers later captured the wild pony, they found the corpse of Vidal on its back and quickly buried him in an unmarked grave. However, the legend of El Muerto continued to grow, and sightings continued into the 1960s. Number 4. The Chenoo. White Walkers aren't just for Game of Thrones fans. The Chenoo, a creature similar to Bigfoot, has been spotted in Maine and is part of a legend from local Wabanaki tribes. Described as a gigantic humanoid with an unending appetite for human flesh, the creature known by the name Chenoo in Mi'kmaq is a creature feared with a deep primal dread. The monster has a heart of solid ice. The more it consumes, the more power the creature gets. They are even said to eat the hearts of their own kind. Some versions of the legend say that there are both male and female Chenoo. Both genders of the creature are cannibalistic, but the men are said to be easier to reason with. I don't know who said that. Some stories even tell of humans befriending the creatures and curing the Chenoo of their cannibalistic cravings. Other stories imply they are the souls of the cursed and become this starving, angry creature when they die. Whichever the case, the creature is said to have a loud, horrible shriek that causes those who hear it to die instantly. A tall, dark creature, the monster can easily be confused with a tree at first glance. Another tribe, the Penobscot, believe the creature was once a human being transformed after being possessed by a demon or as punishment for its cannibalism. If you are ever wondering how you might kill a Chenoo if you should happen to run into one, supposedly you can kill him by making them eat salt, so maybe carry some with you if you are wandering around the area. Number 3. The Ghost Witch. In Passamaquoddy and Mi'kmaq mythology, the creature of the Ghost Witch is said to have been born from the dead body of a shaman who practiced black magic. One legend tells the tale of an old witch who died and was buried up in a tree among the branches. When a native and his wife came along for a place to spend the night, they found the spot under the tree. The woman looked up and saw the long, dark things hanging among the branches, but her husband, upon seeing her wariness, remarked that they were only the dead of long ago and that they should go to sleep. As they finally drifted off and the fire went out, the woman started to hear a gnawing sound like an animal with a bone. Hearing the sound all night, the woman cowered in fear, and when the sun started to rise, she reached out and tried to wake her husband. When he did not wake up, she thought he was sound asleep, and with the gnawing now stopped, she waited for daylight. When she finally went to her husband, the woman found him dead, with his left side gnawed away and his heart gone. The woman ran for help, and after telling her story, locals did not believe her. However, when they went to where she and her husband camped and found him dead with his heart gone under the burial tree with the dead witch overhead, they did believe her. They brought down the witch and unwrapped her burial cloth. Her mouth and face were covered with fresh blood. Number 2. The Catskill Gnomes. In 1609, Henry Hudson sailed into the mouth of the New York River that would later bear his name. After journeying north for several days, he went searching for the Northwest Passage to the Orient. However, after not finding the passage he was looking for, he turned and sailed back down the river. After anchoring in the shadow of the Catskill Mountains, Hudson is said to have heard music floating across the river. With a few of his crew members, he went ashore, and after following the sound into the Catskills, the music began to grow louder. As Hudson and his men continued towards the sound, they were astonished to find a group of pygmies with long, bushy beards dancing and singing in the firelight. Hudson is said to believe that the creatures were gnomes the natives had told him about. The short men surrounded the crew and pulled them toward the fire to sing and dance along with them. The gnomes were said to have also provided Hudson and his men with liquor, which led Hudson to speak to the chief of the gnomes about many deep and mysterious things. When Hudson turned back for his men to retire back to their ship, at first he wasn't able to find them. That was when he noticed that his men had transformed into creatures that looked similar to the gnomes. However, the so-called chief of the gnomes explained that it was the effect of the liquor they had given Hudson to drink. Unsure of what could happen if they remained there any longer, Hudson escorted his men back to their ship where they slept off the effects of the alcohol until the next day, when they set off down the river. Later on, trapped in ice during a long winter, Hudson's men mutinied, sending he and 8 of his crewmen adrift in the bay where they were never seen again. Apparently, 20 years after Hudson first met the Catskill Gnomes, bright fire appeared in the same area where he supposedly saw them. And every 20 years since, it is believed the spirits of Henry Hudson and his crew returned to the Catskill Mountains to cohort with the gnomes. So next time you are in the area, pay attention to the sound of music drifting over the water and be wary of anyone offering you a drink. You never know what might happen. Number 1. La Llorona. Long before the popular Hollywood movie La Llorona came out, the legend of the Weeping Woman had a firm hold on Hispanic culture. The legend of La Llorona starts with the humble beginnings of a woman named Maria, who was born in a small village to a peasant family and had 2 sons. But there are several versions as to who Maria really was. In one version, during the day she was a respectable woman, but at night she would put on her best white gown and dance for the men in the local fandangos. While she was busy entertaining, her neglected boys drowned in the river. Another story says that Maria was a caring woman full of love who had married a wealthy man who spent his days lavishing her with gifts and attention. But after she bore him 2 sons, he was said to have changed, often leaving her for months at a time, and only coming home to visit the boys. She grew resentful, and one day as she was walking with her boys near the river, she spotted her husband in a carriage with another woman. Maria went into a terrible rage and turned against her boys, drowning them in the river, only to realize what she had done. She cried out, "Ay, mis hijos," and then drowned herself. Her ghost is destined to walk the riverbanks, searching for her children as she weeps and wails, "Ay, mis hijos, ay, mis hijos." Children are warned not to go out after dark, as La Llorona might snatch them and drag them to a watery grave. If you hear her cries, you should run as fast as you can, or she might drown you too. Thanks for watching! Hope you don't live near the woods or by a river. Just remember, if you hear anything, run! Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time, I hope. Bye!